we start off this dynamic as, these are two kids in high school and they're meeting this really cool girl. And you have one, Patrick, who's kind of the less serious, less emotional one. And then you have Art, who's the more sensitive one. And I'm not going to discuss tennis too much, but I am going to discuss, obviously, who's on top because that matters. And in the beginning, Patrick really is on top. And we can see that with his interactions with Art, how they talk about him letting him win and stuff like that. So when Tashi goes to see them play, we know that Patrick beats out Art, and that's the jumpstart of their relationship. And Tashi is attracted to competence, right? Like tennis competence. And I think it's notable that this happens in that Patrick wins. They establish that he's the better player. He's the better, not necessarily the better man. I don't think there's any good people here, but he's the one who, he's the one who's going to make it to the top. And him and Tashi subsequently began dating. And it seemed that Tashi and Art are both going to Stanford and sort of doing a collegiate trial, while Patrick is just straight up going professional, right? And that's why he's on tour. That's why there's this separation here. And I think this is done to highlight the sort of intellectual compatibility between Art and Tashi, but also it kind of shows how maybe unserious Art is about his professional career, because he's kind of being, whether he likes it or not, sort of being led by what this girl is doing, right? We don't know that he went to school because of her. We don't know those things, but we can infer that. Also, it also kind of differentiates the two characters of Art and Patrick in that Art is kind of going to go where Tashi goes. It's going to do what she does, or kind of in pursuit of her. I mean, obviously getting into a college like that is great. But there's this element of not necessarily being led by your own motivations, if that seems right. He's always been kind of like a lackey. He's been Patrick's lackey. I mean, they kind of work together, the harder and the softer pair as a pair. But Patrick is out there pursuing it, and I wish we'd gotten this part more fleshed out. But anyway, so he gets to be like, he gets to orbit Tashi, he gets to be around her, all the while that, Patrick is out doing his thing. And in this way, he can sort of whisper in her ear, and Patrick, he's away a lot. And, I mean, that's great. It makes it more exciting, I think, to date, but also, I think it makes it more exciting to date, but also there's, less honesty there, less trust. She doesn't know what he does on the road. And that's what Art does. He plays on Tashi's insecurity that this guy, maybe he's a ladies' man, maybe XYZ. So, and that's what's so interesting, you think they're setting up Art as the good guy, and then you see him full on sabotaging Tashi and Patrick when he full well knows that, maybe Patrick isn't, the most softest guy out there, but he's trying and he's committed and he's trying to become an honest man for Tashi, and Tashi, for all intents and purposes, is really attracted to him. She probably was not, her thinking is interesting. I would have to rewatch the scene of them in the room. I think she kisses Art first in the makeout session, doesn't she? So I mean, it's unclear who she really wanted at that point. I think she wanted the winner, right? She didn't get a chance to get to know any of them. The only thing she knew, honestly, about them, from what we could deduce in that hotel room scene, is that Patrick is the initiator and Art is the sweet one. So she's interested in, okay, so I got this sort of rudimentary information on you. I'm gonna see who wins, because honestly, I'm a winner. I would like to be with a winner. And, it's fun. A little competition's fun. So, anyway, but the point is, we're at Stanford now, and she's with Patrick. And things are presumably going well until these seeds are planted between Tashi and Patrick from Art's kind of whispering in both of their ear, and Patrick sort of recognizes it. And then we go to the interesting scene, and this is a scene that I feel like everybody gets wrong. So you see that they're, about to engage in some hanky-panky, and you have Zendaya talking about tennis while she's doing it. She's clearly extremely fixated on tennis, like hyper fixated. She has a very interesting reaction to him kind of shutting her down and being like, hey, this is not really the time to do this. I think she has what's kind of like, she has a reaction that is really defensive. And I think that's because she's almost kind of thinking that she's found her person who's as into tennis as she is. But, I mean, for Patrick, it's up there, but it's not quite up there. You know what I mean? So what ends up happening is she feels a little bit rejected, and she recoils kind of suddenly, and she's like, okay, well, and then she starts to kind of spiral into this, well, what do you even like me? You got a big XYZ, and you're handsome and charismatic, and you play well, you could get a bunch of other girls, so what is it about me? And she just starts being insecure, and this is all from what Art has kind of fed her, unbeknownst to her, the whole making her doubt whether he's really in love with her. And at this point, I don't know how long they've been seeing each other yet, but let's just say that it does, pour salt in the wound. And here's the other thing about Tashi, is that Tashi likes a good fight. Tashi likes it, and she doesn't see it as, relationship ending. So I think what she really, and this is the part, is you have two extremely dominant characters who are pretty much very prideful, even though I'd say Tashi's more prideful, but kind of fighting for dominance in the relationship. And I think Patrick even says, like, you want somebody to be all about you, and when you kind of throw these fits, to just kind of acquiesce, but that's not going to be me. And he's right, but the thing is, that's what Tashi likes about him. It's because it's not tennis if you don't swing back, right? Tashi wants to have this back and forth with him. And it probably would have blown over had it not been for this career destroying injury, right? So whatever, she's gonna go do her thing. Patrick, I mean, that's kind of, I guess, pretty typical of like, oh, we fought, so I'm not gonna show up to this thing. But, and the thing is, Patrick is like, right, like she really, I guess, I don't know, insulted him. Again, I have seen this once, I forget what she says, but the gist of it is kind of like, I'm not gonna be your, dog, right? So, and he doesn't go to the match to prove that I'm like, you can't just kind of jerk me around emotionally. Even though that's what Tashi likes. Tashi likes a fight. But anyway, he's kind of like, to show her like, I'm my own man, whatever, he doesn't go to the match. And the match is where, this devastating thing happens to her. And that's when Tashi has to reconsider the fact that, hey, you're very self-centered at that moment, right? Where you get hurt, really, really hurt, because suddenly it's everybody's fault. And she's definitely in the space to blame, and your boyfriend not being there for you, while like it suddenly seems all so petty of like you weren't there for me when I got injured. And it's one of those interventions of fate where if it didn't happen, the story would be much more different, but God has other plans, right? So that relationship is swerved, and it's very interesting because you see how invested Art is into the relationship at this point as well. You see that, he's willing to break it off with his bro, which, who he's been very close with all his life. So the fact that he does that, I would say, is he's very serious about Tashi. He's a very serious player in this particular game that he's playing. I think that Patrick underestimated how much he wanted her. And, well, to his demise, I guess. But anyway, this is all to say, let's continue to talk about, Patrick and Patrick's psychology. Because, well, why isn't, Patrick such a puppy love fool for Tashi? Well, for one, he's got his whole life outside of her, right? He actually has a professional career at this point. So he doesn't need the validation. It's obviously nice to have the validation, but he doesn't need it. I feel like Art as coming in as second string, it's a little more necessary, or I guess he's a little bit more wowed. And like the thing is, the whole point of this, I'd say, movie, not the whole point, there's many points in this movie, is that your woman will make or break you. Like, it is very much implied that Art is who he is, and he got so good because of Tashi. And Patrick explain this to me. He's the better one. He's the better one, but the one who gets Tashi is the one who gets significantly more success. How is that? Because of the very, very inescapable principle of life that is, him who has a wife is very blessed. And his fortune will be multiplied. And whatever, we don't need to say that, but that's definitely here. They're also, they're trying to say, maybe there's a girl power element of like, because Tashi is so special, she made Art into something when he could have very well been mediocre. Sure, we could say that as well. But anyway, the point is that, like, the man who got her doesn't just get her, he gets a boost, right? But the thing is, because of Patrick's status, he doesn't feel he needs it, right? He's prideful and he thinks he can do it all on his own. And he doesn't understand the team behind success. So, anyway, he goes out, back to the fight, right? The fight happens. It just occurred to me that Patrick only ends up seeing her when she's in hospital, when she's already been over the worst of it. And, you can't really fight the fact that he's been solidified as not responsible and not there, all the while Art has been positioning himself as her crutch. And it's really sad to watch. It's really sad to watch this character lose her dream. But then she subsequently, sort of, to make up for her lack of power, then goes on to control everything else. And in sort of an act of control, I think we don't know what happens in the time gap, but I think that she clung to Art as a way to get back at Patrick. Because Patrick, obviously it's devastating to lose Tashi, but to lose Tashi and Art together, oof, that sucks. In fact, we could even say that if him and Art had maintained their relationship, if they had been able to, play each other all that time and be that competition, be that fire for each other, they both would have had pretty good careers, Tashi involved or not. So, because again, tennis is about a relationship. That's what Tashi says. And we're going to keep that thesis here. So then, all right, you have them getting married. Art and Tashi get married. They skip over it because I assume it's unimportant. It was probably like a desperate situation for her. But this is the thing that I think people are missing, and that's that Tashi really did love Patrick. She knew that she would love Patrick more. She loved the fact that he was fiery, and that's a callback to I think the duo of Patrick and Art when they were playing doubles was called Fire and Ice, right? So she loves that fiery aspect of herself. She loves that fiery aspect of him, and she also loves the fact that he doesn't see her as kind of this. He doesn't pedestalize her the way Art does. I think and that's huge, because a part of loving and being loved, a big part of this relationship is being seen. Somebody seeing you for who you are, your heart, your soul, even if your heart and soul is, shallow. But not the point, right? And what solidifies this for me, because when you see that scene in the alley where Zendaya's doing this eye glitch, and it's very, very good acting, when you see Tashi in that scene and you think about everything, you're like, no way. You agree with her, you think there's no way there's any emotions here. But here's some things to consider. It's the daylight, okay? The daylight is when everybody is, they're not in their emotions. They're very logical in the daylight. So him asking her this huge favor of coaching him when he sees this weakness in her and Art's bond, that's, first of all, it's insulting. It's insulting because she definitely wants to upkeep the facade that everything is good in the family. Oh my gosh, I don't even want to get into the family dynamics of it because it's not relevant. But this woman does not even spend time with her child. She's so hyper-focused on tennis. But anyway, so I would say that scene is legitimate. That's a legitimate entry into evidence of she thinks he's total trash. But also 10 years have gone by. 10 years have gone by, no matter how you felt as like a teenager or a collegiate, no matter how you feel at that time, when time passes, it's gonna be dulled. The feeling is dulled. But when you see them again in the monsoon or whatever that was, when they're outside with the wind and they're fighting, and she, at the very end of their fight, she gives this look of like confessing. I literally heard it loud and clear. Did y'all not hear it? She pretty much said to him with her eyes and face and facial expressions, she says, how could you have betrayed me? How could you have done that to me, left me? You didn't fight for me. You obviously didn't fight to get me back. That's the thing. You knew. How did you not know how I felt about you? This whole situation is possible because of your lack of giving a fuck. Excuse me. But she pretty much confesses her feelings, and then they kiss, and then they have a whole thing. And then at the end in the car, when they're lying together, she's kind of back down to earth, and she's like, I just want my family to be okay, in the sense of I want my husband back in good mental shape, and that's what she wants. I mean, it's too late. The train has sort of passed to divorce Art and go be with Patrick. It's like, she understands that. So that's why that's all she asks for. Because it would be too ridiculous at that point to ask for anything more, right? So, I know I'm jumping around. I'm sorry about that. But anyway, now that we understand that, Tashi does have deep feelings for Art. Was in love. At the moment, though, she's just trying to secure her home. She's trying to secure her future. And feelings aside, she's gonna do that. So anyway, that's why when they meet again and I didn't even think about was it called the Atlanta Open? Whatever it was, where she's engaged and she sleeps with Patrick and Art kind of knows about it. I thought that was unnecessary and irrelevant, because I feel like I didn't need that to know how she really felt. And the audience who maybe isn't paying attention, how Tashi feels, because she's had this second lapse. She's had this first, that was, I guess, her first lapse in fidelity. So, anyway, now to discuss the ending with the final match between them, the challengers match. So, did Tashi orchestrate it? Did she plan it? Did she know he was going to be there? I don't know. I don't think so. I would say no, because all of her reactions to meeting him have been kind of standoffish. So I'm thinking it's been a long enough time that she doesn't find him at that moment relevant. Let's say prior to her vulnerability during that whole monsoon scene. So, and I know that it's hard to keep up with all the cuts and stuff and jumps backs and forwards. So she pretty much, right, she gives Art this ultimatum of you must win or I'm gonna leave you. Is she serious about that? Well, that's the thing, she is serious. She's very serious about it. She can't go back on her word. That's why she goes to Patrick, knowing that he's potentially a stronger player, and that, well, maybe it's not even that he's a stronger player, it's that Art's confidence is shaken. His interest in the sport is dipping. He wants to retire, and she's kind of desperate. She just needs to get through this day, right? The day where the match that she thought was going to be like a one and done, would fix her issues with her husband's confidence, is turning into something much more, because she doesn't know Art and Patrick's conversations about her. She doesn't know. For all she knows, they could be, gentlemen who aren't speaking about their, they're not kissing and telling. But we know they are. But she knows from the hotel scene that there's not necessarily like a violent jealousy there, but she knows they're not on speaking terms. So she knows that. But she underestimates, I think, their bond. And the thing is, she's right too, because Art has been so loyal to Tashi that, he threw his best friend under the bus. Here's the thing. I'm not saying this in a judgmental way. Because he's right to. She did end up becoming his wife and the mother of his child, so his loyalty is completely valid. the thing is that I think he underestimated his own love for his friend and the sort of the necessity of like a lifelong friend in your life. And when he sort of saw him again, he got triggered into sort of through the lens of Tashi, right? Because he's got this insecurity. He's seen the fact that Tashi cheated on him before with him. He's seen the fact that Tashi was originally with him, and it's almost by sleight of hand or by fate that he got lucky to end up with her, right? So there's this level of like insecurity in him. There's also, you know, the scene in the sauna, you know, the bigger man scene or whatever, where he's a little bit more, he's more reserved and Patrick is very, very open. But pretty much what I'm saying is Art is sort of, I think, disconnected to, he lives kind of in a fantasy, I would say. And his interactions with Tashi are really interesting. Like, he sort of deifies her and puts her on a pedestal, and she kind of plays that role. But I feel she's exhausted by the role, and he's very fulfilled by it. Like, he seems completely at ease with her playing his mommy and his coach and his everything, and she's the one who's kind of not getting her needs met, which is why she's the one who steps out, right? And all the while, you know, he's in this bubble of like, I'm with my perfect wife and my, you know, child, and my career is going well. He's in this bubble, but he doesn't understand Tashi whatsoever. He doesn't understand what she desires and how to fulfill her desires. And he doesn't see her for who she is. I mean, obviously he gives her grace in certain areas, but I don't think he just doesn't get her. He just doesn't see her. And you can see how passionless their relationship is. There's no, it's very soft and gentle and familial, but it's not like lovers. And I think at that point, he is insecure when he meets Patrick, but he doesn't know what he's insecure about. He thinks it's like sexual, but it's more, because he knows he has a blind spot, but he can't quite figure it out. And Patrick, he sees Tashi for what she is. And, you know, while Art has this view of Tashi as his dream girl, I think Patrick is much more realistic and views her as just a girl. Yeah, she's Tashi, yeah, she's talented, but she's just a girl. And that helps him, you know, not idolize her, not put her on a pedestal, which she says she doesn't like. Tashi says she doesn't like it. I mean, she obviously marries a guy who pedestalizes her, but she still feels a yearning for Patrick. What she wants is a Patrick that has the qualities of Art, the qualities of, you know, staying and being loyal and stuff like that. But what she gets with Patrick is and this is how he ends up. I don't think, this isn't how he begins when they were young, but the like sloppy, unconstructed, not really knowing up from down, that version of Patrick. So essentially what she always wanted for Patrick was for him to step up. And the thing is, he would have become that man had she stayed with him. And that's what's so fascinating about this film, is you see one character arc going up and the other going down. Both Tashi lands a defeat quite early on, but you could say that Patrick's decline is much slower. And Art is the only one that you really see the upward trajectory. And then we meet him at the point of stagnation for him. Maybe he's already reached his peak, right? But these are essentially characters that are struggling against their decline. But I'm sorry, I keep getting distracted. But what Tashi wants, what she wanted from Patrick is those elements from Art. And what she wants from Art is those elements from Patrick. That's why they only thrive as a throuple. And that's why it's them together is the love story, right? Because I don't want to invalidate the part that it is about a woman. It is about a woman. And it's about degrees of feeling with this woman. But it's almost like the arrow is pointed, like each character is pointing the arrow at somebody else. Like, so here's the ultimate thing is that Tashi loves Patrick. Tashi wants Patrick. If we're simply thinking about the person, it's Patrick that she wants. Patrick is kind of oblivious / doesn't give a fuck, but loves his best friend and likes the girl who is talented and can help him / is sexually attracted to her / does have romantic feelings for Tashi. Like, he does. It's just he's not the type of guy to dwell on it. But when confronted with it, yeah, he does have feelings for her. Who does Art want? Art wants Tashi 100%. But he still wants his brother, to say the least. He still, they have a bond. The thing is, he's not aware of it, though. He's not aware of it until the final game, when he realized that being with his match is what gives him that spark. And that's why that scene with Zendaya and Patrick fighting, with Tashi and Patrick fighting is important. It's because she wanted somebody to fight back. Art doesn't fight back. Art is not a fight back type of guy. Patrick is. And that's what Patrick has wanted. He's wanted somebody who could be actual competition for him. So when they're finally playing, right, and Patrick is going through this, I guess, decision, right? He's throwing the game for Tashi. He's going to throw the game, and as he's about to throw the game, he realizes that his love for Art and his respect for Art goes far greater than what Tashi could bribe him to do, right? Because essentially it's about manhood. It's about providing for your family, right? So Tashi goes to Patrick to ask him to throw the game so that Art can have his confidence back, right? So it can, continue to benefit her. And Patrick agrees because he loves her and he doesn't care about his pride, really. He knows that he's the better player. He knows that he's capable of winning, right? So he just wants the money, and he kind of doesn't want to get his ego involved. However, he loves Art so much so that as a man to man, he would never betray his brother in the sense of letting him dishonestly win something. He would never insult his masculinity that way. You know what I mean? Yeah, he'd fuck his wife, but that's different. He wouldn't go so low as to throw a match between them. Maybe there's a little part of him, there is a part of him of his pride kicking in, but I think a chunk of it is he wants the love of his friend, and he loves his friend. So he's gonna make the signal of I F Tashi, like we had relations to piss him off. And that's the thing, after that point, you could tell that Patrick isn't playing. He's not going to pretend. He's not going to throw the game anymore. Everything that happens after that point, it's going to be a fair match. And so Art is finally wound up. Tashi doesn't know what's going on. Tashi is kind of oblivious to this this bond between them, this love between them, that you can't manipulate. It's basically, Patrick is basically saying, you can't manipulate us. Like, there's a third leg to this triangle. There's a whole other section of connection that you're missing. And I'm going to talk directly to him. You know, you're not our go-between. That's what the ending is you're not our go-between. We're all in this together. So, Tashi, I think, is pretty, I mean, while she's nervous, right? She's nervous what's going on between them because she can sense some kind of communication and something going on. She's ultimately overjoyed that they're delivering such good performances, and they're only doing that because they're the yin and yang. They're the opposites that fit together somehow. So I've seen a lot of but a lot of interest of like, oh my gosh, I need a 30-minute sequel of what happens after this match. Like, I need to know what happens. And from my understanding, Art and Patrick probably made up. I mean, we know that they made up. They have this beautiful hug, and Tashi's happy too. I think they are going to have a very bittersweet moment, and they're going to finally talk, and they're finally going to get everything out that they've been feeling. And I think once they've had a taste of this reconciliation and a taste of, because here's the thing, they didn't realize how well they worked together. The three of them, even, let's say. They didn't realize how much they were missing each other. Because you think, oh, okay, a duo is enough. It clearly wasn't enough, right? It wasn't enough because Art had no fire, Tashi was dissatisfied, and Patrick was just being a loser. And they thought that was all coincidence. They didn't realize how much they needed each other. So, I know that Zendaya said in an interview that this is a film about codependence. Yeah, it's a film about codependence, but I think it's not supposed to be like in a negative way. I think it's about not being oblivious and thinking that you can do it all yourself and you could all satisfy yourself. So I'm not saying this couple is going to become a throuple or anything, but who really actually knows? They very well could be. But the point is that they need each other. Patrick and Art need each other. It shows, I know that, I mean, as a family, Art and Tashi are linked. And Tashi is she's kind of this order setter. She is setting things in order for them, while the boys are like kind of chaotic and like whatever. She's kind of like the mom, essentially. So she's necessary. And that's the thing. People who are trying to make this out as like just these two bros, they don't need that manipulative woman. I mean, she's the one she's the glue that keeps it together. She keeps it together, and she's the one who's baiting them. She puts the carrot in front of the horses, and she sets it all up. So she's very necessary. Every person is so necessary in this triangle of sorts. So I think that it's a happy ending ultimately, and it would be really fun to see where these characters go. But ultimately, I'm just so satisfied at how well everything was portrayed. You know, I'm really interested in character motivations, and I like it when things make sense. And I thought, when I walked away from this film, like, everything really makes sense, and these feel like real people. So, anyway, I really like challengers. Thank you for listening to my analysis, and have a good one. Bye.